You too.
You've just stepped into the Midlife Revolution Unleashed, your space to ignite possibility, redefine purpose, and embrace the power that comes with age and experience. Co-hosted by yours truly, Coach Wayne.
And I'm Coach Stacy M. Lewis. We are two seasoned coaches focused on the midlife community of color. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. In a world that sometimes forgets the power and the wisdom that comes with age, we are here to ignite a revolution and rewrite the narrative of this incredible journey.
So, whether you're navigating your career, growing your business, rediscovering passions, or challenging the status quo, this is your space. So, buckle up. Let's dive into the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. Good evening, friends. Stacy, how are you, my friend?
Good sir, I am doing wonderfully well. It is always such a gift to spend this time with you. Welcome to our listening audience and our viewing audience to the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. We are excited you are here.
Yep. And Stacy, today, ironically, we're talking about proper or effective communication. And there I was sitting down looking at the signal to get started because we're live on the air. And I saw the red and I'm thinking red means stop. And so I was a little bit delayed in shooting us off. So listen, man, communicating, we're always communicating, even if we're miscommunicating, Stacy.
Well, I would say to you, yes, that is why I communicated with the finger. Bruh, it's on you. We got this. Good evening, good afternoon, good day, everyone. I am Stacy M. Lewis, a nonprofit executive, a midlife women's coach, a lover of God and his people, and I am so excited to be here with my co-host, Coach Wayne. Introduce
Thank you,
yourself,
Stacy. And
Wayne.
I'm Coach Wayne, the VIP coach. I help men of color navigate midlife transitions so that they can land on the other side bigger, better, and bolder than the first.
Bigger,
Stacy,
better, and
today
bolder.
we want to talk about the importance of communicating effectively, both in the workplace and at home, because a lot of folk get in trouble when they open their mouths or they close their ears. And I don't know where we want to begin with this, Stacy, but I know you as an exec are always communicating in many, many areas and directions with those above you and those that are your reports. How is that going for you, Stacy?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. I think every day is still a learning opportunity. And one of the reasons that you and I agreed to talk about this, yes, as midlifers, as seasoned, whether it be professionals, business owners, lifers, the reality is that we can always use a little reminder about communication. And one of the things that I found is that I still have to remember to keep my communications authentic and clear. In other words, when I am talking with someone, in particular, someone that reports to me, it is so important that I am clear and that I provide information in a way that is engaging and that has them walking away with not only a sense of constructive feedback, but a sense of empowerment and inspiration. And so I can tell you about the times that I did not do that well. But I think that we are all a work in progress. And so I'm excited that we're just talking about communication and really reminding ourselves of the value and the power of our voice.
Yeah. Stacey, I think we can shoot off and say today we want to cover at least some of these topics, the idea of empathy, building confidence, feedback, and setting boundaries in the way of communicating. So let's shoot off with you talked about this just now, feedback.
Hmm.
As a person who has gone through Toastmasters and have to do a lot of coaching with other people, that's a very interesting topic, Stacy, and a skill set that a lot of leaders don't have, being able to appropriately give feedback. Now, you know, Stacy, when you do your one-on-ones and you're doing your assessments or evaluations of your folk, feedback is so important. And
Hmm.
as a leader, tell me if I'm correct. It's important that feedback is a two-way street, correct?
It is important that it's a two-way street. It's very important that it's clear. And I think that this goes beyond kind of the manager employee relationship, right? As business partners, it's important that when I'm giving you feedback or you're giving me feedback, that we're doing so in a way that is um, encouraging and um, purposeful and clear, and not in a way that's, well, you should have pressed the start button as soon as I hit the go live button, right? That's not very helpful and encouraging. And so I really think that you're right. It is important that it is positive, that it is constructive, that it is meaningful, and not just bashing or negative.
I want to say that there's a strategy that is taught in many communications schools or schools of communication, which is the sandwich method for feedback.
Hmm.
And that's very simple. It simply speaks to start off with positive attributes or compliments to the person, and then you get into the critique or criticisms or analysis of the person or their work, not the person, but the work or the
Hmm.
behavior. That's important. And then you want to close up with a nice package, a parcel, a little bow on top to have the person walk off feeling not the worst about themselves by adding something authentically complimentary. So that's
Right.
the sandwich method.
Yeah, constructive, helpful,
Yeah.
inspirational. Like, yes, because we can all benefit from constructive feedback. So I think that what you're saying is absolutely right. And good evening, Curtis. It is always wonderful to see you. Welcome to the Midlife Revolution Unleashed.
Sir Curtis,
He's the
pleasure
best.
always to have you, my brother. And Stacy, let's talk about confidence.
Mm,
A lot of folk,
yeah.
go ahead, Stacy.
And I was going to say that, we forget that we communicate confidence, right? We need to be standing in confidence when we're communicating, but we're also communicating the level of confidence that we have. And I have witnessed recently, um, whether I am in the work setting, the professional setting, or even in some more informal settings, that when people are communicating, they're communicating from this place that lacks confidence. And that is immediate to sense, to experience, to really like, oh, okay, they're really not sure about either themselves or what they're saying. So the way you put confidence opens the door, I could not agree with you more, because you really do not only communicate confidently, but you communicate the confidence that you have when you're communicating.
And folks would say, well, Wayne, Stacy, what if we don't have the natural confidence? How do we get some confidence? And I would say it starts off with knowing your audience or the person that you're speaking with, right? And also knowing your subject matter. Those two, which means if you got to do the research, do the research. But those
Mm-hmm.
two elements are important because you want to speak from a position of certainty and having a sense of who you're speaking with, to whom you're addressing, and the topic that you're about to bring out makes sense if you want to be able to exude confidence. You don't want to be backstepping and backsliding, because then all of a sudden you are questionable. You lose your authority, your sense of persuasion and power.
Yeah, I think that, all of us, even in this season of life, right? This, what we're calling midlife, we have been in situations and conversations where maybe we weren't feeling so confident about either what we were saying or about how we were presenting. Um, and at the same time, it's critical to even know that in your mind and begin to boost your own confidence in those very moments. Um, and anything that, whether you're working with a coach or you working with a therapist, or whether you are cheering yourself on, you've got to remember to communicate with confidence.
Yeah. Confidence can open doors, I'll tell you, because if we do, and we're always on stage, even if we think we're not, somebody's always paying
Mm,
attention, watching us. And as leaders, again, we're always leaders in our own mind. We may not see it, but we are, because people, again, that we interact with may be looking at us. And it's important for us to step with that confidence. And there is something about fake it till you make it, but not when it comes to being ignorant of the topic you're going to speak with, right? You're just going to go out there. And we know there are people in leadership position that don't know what they're speaking to, but they bluff it anyway. But you're quickly seen through. And so we would suggest that do everything you can in preparation
mm-hmm,
before you open your mouth, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, Before you
I
step on your
agree.
accelerator, put your car in gear.
You
Speak.
always come up with a good analogy.
Yes.
Kudos
Yeah.
to you. I think, one of the other pieces that I was just reminded of is that our words have power. And there are points in life where maybe we feel a little beat down or taken aback, or like maybe we don't have anything to say. But our words do have power. And often we are empowering other people through the words that we are saying. So it is so important that we remember that our words have power, and that we're communicating to, often, to empower other people. So whether in the workspace, as coaches in particular, um, we're talking to empower other people, right? To inspire other people, and to remember that our voice, our words, is really a gift. And as we are using it, we want to make sure that we are reminded of the fact that we're here to empower other people. We've been put in a position to empower other people, and let's not forget that as we communicate.
But I want to say too, Stacy, not but in addition to,
Mhm.
I wanted to add that the idea of self-confidence is important. Why? Because when we are self-confident, we are going to speak to ourselves from a position of love and kindness
Mm.
and even grace. We won't beat ourselves up. So when we are able to understand that we love ourselves and we are about taking care of our own self, that gives us the self-confidence we need because we're not slaughtering ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I think
then
it helps you communicate with clarity and purpose, right?
absolutely.
That confidence helps you choose your words in ways that are going to communicate clearly and intentionally or purposefully.
And here's one that a lot of folk get trapped up on, Stacy, and this is a big one: empathy.
Mm.
Standing in the footsteps or footprints or shoes of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's part of emotional intelligence, but it ranks very highly because oftentimes we speak from a mighty place, a place where there's pseudo power, and we
Mm.
forget that those that we speak with are real and are experiencing life from their position, their perspective. And sometimes when we do that, we're not in touch with reality. We wind up hurting people, dismissing people, or negating people.
That was so good. It is, again, our words have power. And coupling the words with the intention of being empathetic, of understanding that whatever the conversation is, right, could be a joyful, jovial conversation or a very serious conversation, that it's not just about your point of view. It really is about, you're communicating who you're talking to, considering who you're talking to, and what their experience is, even in the moment of the conversation. And I love what Curtis just said: is empathy is a great word, and responsibility.
And for
Good
men
stuff.
in particular, I want to talk to you, brothers. We sometimes believe, because empathy is considered one of those nurturing
Mm,
words, right? Activity, action. And we sometimes think that we're beyond being empathetic. It's not macho or masculine enough. But I would say this: it's entirely the opposite in terms of reaching to people and showing that you are, in fact, a leader, one who cares, one who has others following you, not because of your title, but because you have real influence. You connect. Stacy, a lot, we'll probably do this later on this season. But you know what I think is absent today, especially as I see the younger generation? Connectivity, the
mm,
ability to truly connect. We're
mm.
losing that skill as a people. And midlifers, old schoolers, seasoned folks keep that ability to touch each other through empathy.
I love that. I also love that you talk to the men, because it gives me the opportunity to talk to the sisters out there, because there are times in communications that we can over empathize. Not all the time, right? But that we're so focused on the other person's experience, the other person's feelings, the other person's possibilities. We we can create the narrative in our minds as to why they did what they did, or why they said what they said, in a way that dilutes the purpose and the power of our words, because we are being too empathetic. We are being too kind of connected to the emotional intelligence of another person, or really caught up in our own emotions and emotional intelligence in a way that hinders the communication. So I think it really is an interesting, and that's why I love having these conversations with you, because it's an interesting um, way to think about uh, the genders, and how they maybe lack empathy sometime, or they can be over empathetic sometime. And I'm sure it's not fully gender specific, so we don't want to generalize here.
Yeah.
But it really is an interesting dynamic, right? As we talk about empathy and men and women.
Yeah. There's a saying, and I may be slaughtering it. People don't care how much you know until you show, until they know how much you care, something of the sort.
Mm, mhm. Mhm.
So to connect with
Mhm.
folks, having
Mhm.
that sense of empathy. And I
Yeah.
know oftentimes when it comes to our relationships, brothers, we got to step out, whether it's a relationship with friends, bosses, co-workers, your team, your spouse, your kids. We got to step out of that stoic box that
Mm.
we've been pushing forward these days and just have a sense of heart,
Mhm.
connect at the heart level. It goes a long way, and people, I think, feel it, and you'll get a better response. Don't worry about people taking advantage of you. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I in this day and time, right, uh with us all being in situations where it feels like we're not communicating well because we maybe don't agree in certain areas, it is important for us to really be a little bit more empathetic and attentive to the way we're communicating. And what I will couple that with is we also need to remember to keep it clean. There have been a couple of times recently that I have been in work communications where I don't really know the person that well. And, we might just be making small talk or just beginning to have conversation. And all of a sudden, this person takes the liberty to drop the F bomb or, to say something a little foul about someone else. And when that happened, at first I felt a little assaulted. And I'm no prude, trust I have a family and there's some great cusses amongst us. Yet I was in a work setting. And so it is the expectation that we're going to have a conversation and you are going to respect me as a person because you don't really know me. So there's this informality sometime that happens, or this thought that because these are the words I use frequently, that it's okay to use them in every setting. And I want to remind our brothers and sisters that there's a good time to keep it clean.
Yeah. And I would add, Stacy, that was great. I think well taken and a great observation to make. Dropping the F bombs, for a moment I thought they were trying to tell you they wanted to be your friend, dropping the
Oh.
F bomb. I guess it's the other F bomb,
The friend bomb?
not the
Okay.
friend bomb. But Stacy, I'm thinking about boundaries as you said that,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the things that we have to have is clear rules of demarcation around boundaries, right? I and as midlifers, oftentimes we are the go-to in the culture that we work in. We've been there, or we have some experience going on, and people know that we probably are the handover of the culture, as it were. And so a lot of times people will approach us, and again, we need to set boundaries how those things are done. It's
Mm-hmm.
important. You can't come to my office or my cubicle any old time unless there is an agreement that that's okay, and interrupt the
Mm-hmm.
work. And similarly, because I have more experience doesn't allow me to just come in and invade your space, right? And sometimes we do that. Sometimes we are the OGs, as it were, and we take that upon us to just do what we will. And I think boundaries are so important. Again, going out for cocktails with your friends, your colleagues, is different than going out with your friends. And so
Yes.
boundaries are important. You don't want to drink like a slob and start slurring and acting crazy. Use your discretion and understand where the boundaries are. You know, you're with your boss. This is not the place and time to give them a back slap and carry on, right? You got to mind your manners, watch your boundaries. So important if you're going to stay alive, especially in the workplace.
It certainly isn't the time for physical communication, right? The backslap. But I also think it is a great way to remind us to watch the oversharing, right? You talked about we as OGs sometimes think, we know it all or we've got all the answers. And we'll come into a situation in a way that says, like, I got this. I know what I'm saying. Just listen to me. Stick with me, kid, and you'll go far. Um, and it leads to a sense of like, I can share whatever I want to share because I've either made it this far in my career or this is my business and I can share how I want to. And we start sharing our personal business, we start sharing our financial business, we start sharing how what an expert we are. And we have to really be mindful of that. Start sharing our political views or our religious views. And every place is not the place for that. And so, how we communicate, and we touched a little bit on intention, but making sure that as we communicate, that we're doing so while we are mindful about what we're saying and who we're saying it to.
You know, Stacy, I think that in all things, the more structured you are as
Mm.
far as a mental strategy, the greater you go as far as your impact and influence and even success. And let me explain. When you're communicating, be sure you know what the end result that you desire ought to be, right? Don't just go in. If you're persuading, if you're informing, if you're giving jokes, if you're whatever it is, be sure that you know what the end result that you want is. That will determine the language and the flow and even the mode that you use to communicate to the next person. Because
Mhm.
truly, communication is the message that is given and received by the next party. And so you're not communicating effectively if what you intended at the start isn't what landed at the end. And so it's important to plan your way through that journey.
To be intentional.
To be intentional.
To be intentional. And we don't often use this word when we talk about communication. Um, but the word I want to use is mindful or mindfulness, right? Let's really think about what we're communicating, the intention behind the communication, even if we need to write down some bullet points before we have the conversation. Before we, you talked earlier about like preparing basically. And even if we need to write something down, before we have the conversation, let's be intentional. It's a great time to remind ourselves that our tone matters and our intention behind our words really are important.
So powerful. Stacy, you know what date it is?
Uh, November 19th.
And you know what time it is already?
Oh, yes, I do see the time.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, as we think about wrapping up our wonderful conversation for the evening, um, to remind our listeners and viewers that it's not too late and you're not so seasoned that you shouldn't pay attention to your communication. You're not so set in your ways that you can't amp up, boost up, improve, revisit your communication strategies. What does your authentic voice sound like? How can you bring more of yourself to the conversation? Those are just two questions you can ask yourself as you think about the conversation that you're going to have, or even as you are in conversation. Am I being authentic in this moment? How can I be more authentic? How can I be more present? How can I bring more of myself into this conversation?
I love it. I love it. Stacy, tell the people where they can go if they want to get some help as far as bolstering their conversations and their communication skills.
Well, as usual, you can reach out to Coach Stacy or Coach Wayne. We would love to just have a great old conversation with you and get to know you and see how we can be of support. I can always be reached at my website, thestacymlewis.com. You see the email address on the screen. Wayne, how about you?
There you go. Coach Wayne at Wayne Dawson at VIPtransformativeliving.com. And you can go to my website as well and see many other avenues to get to me. Stacy, it's Thanksgiving coming up. And next week, we want to talk to folk about some of the mental health issues, the emotional issues that we deal with in the holidays. So stay tuned for that, folk, because we definitely want to make sure that it's a safe one and a great one.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to remind our listeners, confidence opens the doors. Empathy is more than your point of view. Feedback should be positive. Communicate with clarity and with purpose. Keep it clean. Watch the oversharing. Be mindful of your tone and intention. Most importantly, remember that your words have power and you should be empowering others with your words.
And until next time, folk, stay well, walk good.
See you next time.
And there you have it, folks. This week's episode of the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. Hey, we truly appreciate your spending this time in this space with us. Join us next week at the same time as we dive into relevant topics and present solutions to spark new thinking and empower your midlife journey.
And don't forget, if you enjoyed today's episode, let us know in the comments and share it with others. And of course, remember to subscribe, share, like, hit that notification bell. You are the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. I'm Coach Stacy, and I'm cheering you on.
And I'm Coach Wayne, and I'll see you at the top.